Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. My sister-in-law Zoe came out as a trans woman when she was 18 in 2019. My not-so-wonderful in-laws kicked her out of the house then and there. It was a cold November evening when they told her to leave, throwing her out at 8 p.m. with no money or even any documents. Her father, Tom, even took her car keys. "You're not welcome here anymore," Tom had sneered. "Get out and don't come back." Zoe had to walk 5 miles in the freezing rain to get to our place. She was soaked and shivering when she arrived, tears mixing with the raindrops on her face. My husband Jake and I took her in without hesitation. "What happened?" Jake asked, wrapping a warm blanket around his sister's shoulders. Between sobs, Zoe explained the situation. We were horrified by their behavior, but if it had stopped there, Jake and I would have just cut them off. However, they doubled down on their cruelty. They refused to hand over any of Zoe's documents, and Jake had to go over and force his way into their house to retrieve them. "This is ridiculous," Jake had shouted at his parents. "She has a right to her own documents." But that wasn't the worst of it. They cleaned out all the money in a joint account where Zoe had saved up $12,000 working part-time throughout high school. They took the money and also sold her car, which was in their name. "We're just taking back what's rightfully ours," Zoe's mother, Linda, had coldly stated when confronted about the theft. It was clear they were trying to ruin Zoe's life as much as they could. My father-in-law, Tom, ran a small business, and his biggest account was supplying my employer, Tech Innovate. I had helped him secure the contract back in 2017, and it was very lucrative for him. Tech Innovate was a family-owned business that treated long-term employees more like family than employees. One day in early 2020, I was talking to my boss, Sarah, about what had happened to Zoe. "That's awful," Sarah said, shaking her head. "Is there anything we can do to help?" I hesitated before replying. "Actually, there might be. If I could find a supplier within 5% of Tom's price range, would you consider making a switch?" Sarah nodded. "Absolutely. We're not obligated to stick with one supplier. If you can find a better option, we'll make the change." Tom had offered us great rates and was very good at his job, but he had become complacent. He assumed we wouldn't switch suppliers and hadn't bothered to update our contract terms. It took me 6 months of intense searching to find a supplier who could replace Tom and offer competitive rates. This wasn't a major part of my job description, and I had to put in many extra hours to find the right supplier. But when I finally did in August 2020, I waited for a month before informing Sarah. You see, Tom and Linda had been planning major renovations for a long time, involving tearing down a significant portion of their house. I waited until the renovation work had truly started before approaching Sarah again. "I found a new supplier," I told her. "They can match Tom's prices and offer better terms." Sarah reviewed the proposal and agreed to make the switch. We started getting supplies from the new company the following month. The impact on Tom's business was immediate and severe. It completely disrupted his unit economics, and he had to scramble to find new customers. In a twist of fate, Tom and Linda ended up having to sell their house to save the business. They didn't get a good price for it because the house was half torn down when they sold it in early 2021. "This is all your fault," Tom had yelled at me when he found out about the lost contract. "You've ruined us." I simply replied, "I was just doing my job, Tom. Maybe you should have thought about that before you ruined your daughter's life." Tom and Linda did try to get money from Jake, but he told them in no uncertain terms to leave us all alone. To his credit, Tom is a decent businessman, and he did manage to crawl his way out of the hole they had dug for themselves. But even now, in 2024, they still haven't bought a new house. I've heard through the grapevine that they're still bitter about what happened. I mean, I was just doing my job, and if they had just accepted Zoe for who she is, they would still have their house. Actions have consequences, and sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. The next one is an entitled people story. I never thought I'd have to deal with entitled neighbors at my secluded forest cabin, but life has a way of surprising you. My name's Jack, and I bought this little slice of heaven about 5 years ago as a getaway from my hectic city life. It's nestled deep in the woods, with the nearest town about an hour's drive away. The isolation was exactly what I was looking for, or so I thought. About a year ago, a couple moved into the only other cabin within walking distance of mine. At first, I was excited to have new neighbors. Maybe we could help each other out, share resources, that sort of thing. Boy, was I wrong. Meet Karen and her husband, Bob. They seemed nice enough at first. We exchanged pleasantries when we ran into each other on the dirt road leading to our cabins. But it didn't take long for Karen's true colors to show. It started with small things. She'd borrow firewood from my pile without asking. I'd notice my tools missing, only to find them in her yard a few days later. I tried to be understanding. Maybe they were just forgetful or didn't realize it was a big deal. But things came to a head when it came to water. See, both our cabins rely on well water. My well is deeper and more reliable, while theirs tends to run low during dry spells. One particularly dry summer, Karen knocked on my door. "Jack, our well is running low. Can we use yours for a bit?" she asked, all sweet and innocent. Being the good neighbor I thought I was, I agreed. "Sure, just for a few days while you get yours sorted out." Big mistake. A few days turned into a week, then 2. Every time I brought it up, Karen had an excuse. "The well guy is backed up." "We're waiting on parts." Always something. After a month I'd had enough. I politely but firmly told Karen they needed to fix their well ASAP. She huffed and puffed but seemed to get the message. Or so I thought. A couple days later I woke up to the sound of a motor running outside. Confused and still groggy, I stumbled out of bed and looked out the window. What I saw made my blood boil. There was Karen, bold as brass, using a pump to siphon water from my well into large containers in the back of her pickup truck. She must have thought I was out of town or something. I threw on some clothes and stormed outside. "Karen, what the hell do you think you're doing?" She jumped, clearly not expecting to get caught. But instead of being embarrassed or apologetic, she puffed up like an angry hen. "I'm just taking what I need," she snapped. "You have plenty of water and we're desperate." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That doesn't give you the right to steal from me. Turn off that pump right now and get off my property." Karen's face turned an impressive shade of red. "How dare you? We're neighbors. We're supposed to help each other out." "Help, yes. Let you steal from me? No way," I retorted. "Now leave or I'm calling the cops." That's when Karen pulled out her phone. "Fine, I'll call them myself. You can explain to them why you're denying us a basic human right." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. "Go ahead," I said, crossing my arms. Karen dialed cop, putting on a perfect damsel in distress act. "Please help. My neighbor is threatening me and won't let me access water. I fear for my safety." Now, our local sheriff's department doesn't get many calls out this way, so they take everyone seriously. Within 30 minutes, a deputy's car was rolling up my driveway, lights flashing. Deputy Johnson stepped out looking concerned. He knew me from around town, but had never been called out to my place before. "Everything all right here, folks?" he asked, eyeing the scene warily. Karen immediately launched into her version of events, painting herself as the victim and me as some kind of water-hoarding monster. I waited patiently for her to finish her dramatic tale before calmly explaining the real situation. "Deputy, this woman has been stealing water from my well without permission. I caught her in the act this morning," I said, gesturing to the pump and containers. "I asked her to leave, and she responded by calling you." The deputy turned to Karen. "Ma'am, is this true? Have you been taking water without permission?" Karen sputtered, her story falling apart. "Well, yes, but we need it. He has so much, and our well is dry." Deputy Johnson sighed, clearly used to dealing with these types of disputes. "Ma'am, regardless of your need, you can't just take someone else's resources without permission. That's theft." "But it's just water," Karen protested. "Which costs money to pump and maintain," I interjected. "Not to mention the electricity for the pump you're using to steal it." The deputy nodded. "He's right, ma'am. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises now. If you need water, you'll have to find a legal way to obtain it." Karen looked like she was about to explode. "This is ridiculous. I'll sue you for this, Jack. You haven't heard the last of me." As Karen stormed off to her truck, Deputy Johnson turned to me. "Do you want to press charges, Jack?" I thought about it for a moment. Part of me wanted to teach Karen a lesson, but I also didn't want to escalate things further. "Not this time, Deputy, but I would like it on record in case this happens again." He nodded, jotting some notes in his pad. "I'll file a report. If she gives you any more trouble, don't hesitate to call us." After the deputy left, I reinforced the security around my well. I installed a locked cover and a security camera just in case Karen got any more bright ideas. For a while, things were quiet. Too quiet, as it turned out. About a week later, I got a notice in the mail. Karen was indeed suing me, claiming I had violated her right to water and caused her emotional distress. I couldn't believe it. The audacity of this woman was truly astounding. But I wasn't about to roll over and let her bully me. I hired a lawyer, gathered all my evidence, including the security camera footage I'd installed after the incident, and prepared for court. The day of the hearing arrived, and Karen swanned in like she already had it in the bag. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, listened to both sides. Karen spun a tale of woe, claiming I was hoarding a natural resource and that she had no choice but to take matters into her own hands. When it was my turn, I presented the facts, the history of Karen's entitlement, the agreement we initially had, and how she had violated that by stealing from me. I showed the security footage and the police report. The judge didn't take long to make her decision. She dismissed Karen's lawsuit and issued a stern warning. "Mrs. Karen," the judge said, peering over her glasses, "water rights are complex, but one thing is clear. You cannot simply take from your neighbor's well without permission. Your actions constitute theft, and you're lucky Mr. Jack here didn't press charges. If you continue this behavior, you may face criminal penalties." Karen's face was a mix of shock and outrage. She started to protest, but the judge cut her off. "Furthermore, I'm ordering you to pay Mr. Jack's legal fees and to reimburse him for the water you've taken. If you need water, I suggest you repair your own well or arrange to purchase it legally." I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as we left the courthouse. Karen and Bob avoided eye contact, scurrying to their car like scolded children. In the weeks that followed, things changed around our little neck of the woods. Karen and Bob kept to themselves, and miraculously their well problem was suddenly fixed. I guess when they realized they'd have to pay for water one way or another, fixing their own well didn't seem so bad. As for me, I learned a valuable lesson about setting boundaries, even in a place as seemingly peaceful as my forest getaway. I still enjoy the solitude, but now I keep a watchful eye out for entitled neighbors trying to take advantage. In the end, Karen's attempt to steal my water and sue me backfired spectacularly. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways, or in this case, through the justice system. I just hope she learned her lesson about respecting other people's property. But knowing Karen, I won't hold my breath. The next one is a petty revenge story. I went to a coffee shop with a friend about a year ago, and I wasn't too hungry but wanted a quick bite. It was early and I don't eat too heavily in the morning, so when I approached the counter, I ordered my coffee and a bagel with cream cheese. The barista told me the bagel was on the kids' menu, and therefore I couldn't order it. I asked for clarity, and confirmed it was a regular size bagel, and asked her, "So you'd rather I not order anything? The other options on the menu were full breakfast meals, skillets, etc., than give you business because of a silly rule?" She gave me a very snide, "Yep." So I laughed and said, "Okay," and sat down. I explained to my friend what just transpired, and she said, "Nah, I have an idea." She proceeds to put in a DoorDash order for one bagel to be picked up. We keep an eye on the counter, and sure enough, I see the bagel ready to be picked up. I approach the counter and ever so kindly ask for my DoorDash order for name. The same barista tosses the bagged bagel at me without saying a word and walks away. Very weird hill for them to die on, especially because bagels are such a common breakfast item, so it was odd to limit it to children, and I can understand wanting to sell the more expensive breakfast meals instead, but seriously? You're not going to sell me a bagel for what? I should have known the vibes were off the moment I walked in, and the entire coffee shop was that live, laugh, love barn door aesthetic too. The next one is a malicious compliance story. This MC happened nearly 10 years ago. The relevant context is that at the time, one's salary for this job was made up of a low basic salary, but a big uplift for the intensity of the job you were working, in terms of working hours outside of 9 a.m., 5 p.m. The way that employers made sure jobs had the correct uplift was through a process known as monitoring. In order for monitoring to be valid, a certain proportion of the employees on that job had to complete a diary of their working hours for 2 weeks. Of course, the diary was on an archaic electronic system, a pain to fill in, finicky, slow, and generally made in a way to make it non-user friendly. In this particular location I was working in, there was one job which everyone dreaded working, because it was widely acknowledged that the workload was extremely high, i.e. frequently working 2, 3, or even 4 hours of unpaid overtime every day to get the work done, and this was not adequately reflected in the overall pay. This had been going on for the better part of a decade, and it was abundantly clear that the workload vastly outstripped the compensation. However, every time anyone complained, the employer would hold up their hands and say, "The monitoring doesn't reflect that," often because the threshold proportion of employees filling out the monitoring hadn't been reached. And wash their hands of the situation. They went full, "These are the rules, we're just following them." Essentially, the workers on that particular job were so overworked and the monitoring process so laborious that there was never enough people filling it in to reach the threshold. QMC. My best friend and I were suffering through this job for 4 months alongside 3 others. In fact, over the course of the year, 15 of us would work that job. It came to the monitoring period, and my best friend and I were meticulous about filling in the monitoring. We logged every single goddamn second we worked overtime, not missing a day for 2 weeks. Not just that, however, we lit a fire under the asses of everyone else. We texted, called, cajoled, harassed, or otherwise persuaded all the others on this job to fill out their monitoring accurately too. In fact, we were so driven that all 30 employees filled out their monitoring correctly. Well, the monitoring period ended, and lo and behold, it demonstrated we were being vastly underpaid for our roles, risking big penalties for the employer. Not only that, but it turns out they had fudged the payment rates for a number of other jobs too. The employer wasn't defeated yet, as they once again pointed to the rule book, saying that any monitoring which showed a change in pay was due had to be repeated. So they set up a second fortnight of monitoring. You can guess what happened. Instead of being defeated by another round of monitoring, the cohort suddenly had the bit between their teeth. The second fortnight of monitoring, we did significantly less badgering of people because suddenly everyone was rather motivated to do it themselves. The second round of monitoring came and went with the same results as before. Significant underpayment. The employer continued to stall, but we pointed at the rule book they had so often thrown in our face. They ended up having to pay people who were doing the underpaid jobs more to make them up to the correct level of income. Furthermore, the rule book said that payments were retrospective for the whole year, so even those who had worked those jobs before the monitoring happened got back paid. Overall, I was owed and received nearly £10,000 in back pay. I reckon the employer shelled out the better part of £250,000 in owed pay, and all because we stuck to the system like they told us to. The next one is an entitled people story. I love my in-laws so very much, but I just feel so disappointed by them today. So, for some background, I'm white, and my in-laws are Korean. I'm in South Korea right now, enjoying my time here. My fiancé and his parents are very wealthy, and that's not something I'm used to. I didn't grow up with the luxuries he grew up with. From that, I can see my father-in-law is very entitled, and he brags a lot about his money. They have even paid for all 3 of my trips to come to South Korea. My fiancé switched his career from aviation to data science. He has a real passion for data science, and he has the brain for it. I know it's a bit more challenging for him to get a job as a pilot in the US, due to the country wanting pilots to be US citizens because of what happened with 9/11. I helped my fiancé come up with the idea that he should work in data science, and he instantly became so excited and passionate. Back in December, when I came back to South Korea, my father-in-law told me that he feels like he wasted his money on aviation just for his son to choose data science. I told him I understand that concern, but it's up to him to decide what he wants for his life. It was a very long conversation, and my fiancé wasn't even present for it. I mentioned it to my fiancé, and he told me his parents never told him about this concern they have. I don't know why they would put that on me and not tell their son. Fast forward to today, I was having lunch with my in-laws when my fiancé was working. My father-in-law asked me what I wanted for my fiancé to do for a job, aviation or data science. I instantly thought, oh crap, not this again. And I told my father-in-law that it's up to my fiancé of what he wants to do. He then again said he wasted so much money just for him to change careers. I respectfully told him I understand that, but he needs to do what makes him happy. Even my mother-in-law said she wants him to be a pilot. I just felt so defeated, like I don't know why they don't talk to their son. Another side note is I recently had a health concern. I have high blood pressure and I'm taking medication for it. It was really horrible. It all happened a few days ago. For me, it's genetics since my dad has it. The doctor said it's not about my diet, but if anything, stay clear of salty food, which I don't eat anyways. I just have to be mindful of my condition, take care of myself, and take the medication. I told my fiancé, and he felt so bad about my recent condition. He told his parents before I came to South Korea. For a little background, I'm 27, 4'11", and weigh 118 pounds. I always eat in small portions, and my in-laws even joke around that I eat in such a small way. During lunch, my father-in-law said that he wants me and my fiancé to change and fix our eating habits and for us to eat healthier. I'm sure he meant to be nice, but I took it the wrong way. Since my in-laws finding out about my health condition, they keep telling me to change my diet, and I keep reminding them it's genetics and the diet I just need to be mindful of. I don't know what to do. I love my in-laws, but I'm so upset over what happened during lunch. I don't know what I can do when this happens again. I don't want to create problems for them. I feel like they blame me for my fiancé changing his major. I really want an amazing future with my soon-to-be husband and his parents, but I feel like this is creating a big problem. I don't know if they are being entitled or is there something I'm missing. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.